Good morning and welcome to our continued study of the introduction of our beloved founder Acharya's Bhagavad Gita as it is. Introduction. And the question today is, can we become immortal? And if so, how? So we'll start as usual with Srila Prabhupada's personal speaking of Mangalacharana prayers to create most auspicious transcendental atmosphere for our deeper understanding and realization. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhupada's creating a most auspicious atmosphere by his personally coming to this planet, and even more importantly, most essentially, is his ongoing, constant presence through his Vani. Although Vapu's, the form, is so valuable and pure and transcendental, I benefited so much, I think, because I'm one of the most fallen. I had to have Prabhupada's physical presence. so many more never had that. And Prabhupada actually said that although we serve that form when it's present, and he's present also in his murti, so we can continue to do that. But the level of transcendental vision and realization to appreciate that as much as the manifest so-called physical presence is very high level. So, and very rare, unless and until we become extremely advanced. So we appreciate that, and watching videos of Prabhupada, hearing his classes, this all makes a difference, not just spiritually, but on every level. We see him, the way he moves, the way he behaves, the way he relates, the way he walks, the way he talks, as Arjuna asked Krishna. How does such a person walk? How do they talk? So that's valuable. At the same time, Prabhupada made it very clear that is not essential. What is essential is association through the words, the vani, the instructions, the sound vibration emanating from the lotus lips of such a pure devotee. So it's important that we accept that and also be very patient. That I may not appreciate that as much as I could do now. And yet, because Prabhupada has told us that, and it's there throughout the scriptures, then we practice and we're patient. So I've shared the connection, and I think the chat is open. So at any point, please put in your name and Haribol or Hare Krishna, or some question or comment or realization, or some doubt, some question about what I'm saying anytime, whether I answer immediately or not. I usually do. So we're continuing the Bhagavad Gita introduction. And we can consider, all right, people say you can't become immortal. Depends on who you are. If you are the body, yes, the body is going to return to the dust. But you, the real you, the driver of the car, does not do that. You remain. And there's a very nice little book, very nice bridging book called Coming Back. And one of the versions has as a cover an very elderly, bent over old man going through a revolving door, and what comes up the other side is a little, very young child. So the science of the transmigration of the soul. What can transmigrate if it doesn't continue? So the soul is continuing and therefore transmigrating. And this section of the Bhagavad Gita is talking about that. And previously, I think Krishnananda Prabhu mentioned this particular. Well, it's there in the purport, in the introduction that we're reading. This section, page 22, in this version. I'm not sure what version you're using. Either way, it says from Bhagavad Gita in the 8th chapter, where Krishna makes a promise. He said, anyone who quits his body at the end of life, remembering me, attains immediately to my nature. And there is no doubt of this. Bhagavad Gita chapter 8, verse 5. One who thinks of Krishna at the time of his death goes to Krishna. Now we're a little further on from there. It's the next paragraph, actually. We're starting with today. The process of quitting this body and getting another body in the material world is also organized. So whether we get the spiritual godly body, which Krishna promises we will, if we remember him at the time of death, when we leave the body, or whether we don't do that and think about something material, about our spouse, or our money, or our dog, or how about that, even if you desire to have one sweet ball, you'll have to come back to enjoy that. So you're thinking about the sweet ball. So that, and as we'll continue. So it's an organized system. The process is organized. It's not random. It's very clearly delineated that if you do this, you'll get that. If you do that, you'll get that. A man dies after it has been decided what form of body he will have in the next life. After he quits his body, after it's decided what form he'll have. So higher authorities, not the living entity himself, make this decision. According to our activities in this life, we either rise or sink. So that sounds like a contradiction. It's saying that higher authorities just make the decision, not us. And then the next sentence seems to contradict that, saying, according to our activities in this life, we either rise or sink. This life is a preparation for the next life. If we can prepare, therefore, in this life to get promotion to the kingdom of God, then surely after quitting this material body, we will attain a spiritual body just like the Lord, as he has promised in that 5th verse of the 8th chapter. He attains my nature. So Krishna is promising. So the question of, right, so why does this seems like a contradiction? That higher authorities, that indicates that I have nothing to do with it. And at the same time, it's being made very clear that what we think of at the time of death depends on what we do now. According to our activities in this life, we either rise or sink. We can prepare, therefore, to get promotion to the kingdom of God, which means we become immortal. So how do we resolve this apparent contradiction? Higher authorities are deciding, or I'm deciding? I choose what I do. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also describes how there are 5 factors of action. One is the individual, you and I. We have choice. Prabhupada says human life is a life of responsibility, which means, all right, I have a choice to go to the market, to Food for Life today for lunch, prasadam, or not. I choose, and according to that, I get certain results. I'll meet certain people there. I'll have a certain type of food. I'll be driving the car, and I may see someone I haven't seen in years, and wave and stop and see them. Or there may be a car accident. I may get stuck in traffic. We don't know. Higher authorities are dictating certain things. So I can make a choice. And that same description of the 5 factors of action by Krishna says that ultimately it's the supersoul. So man proposes, God disposes. God fulfills our desires. We want to continue in this material world pretending to and imitating Krishna, to enjoy in any way separately from him, or learn how to use our enjoying propensity for him. Dovetailing, Prabhupada uses that word quite often, dovetailing our tendency, our materialistic tendency to avoid Krishna, to deny Krishna, to reject Krishna, to enjoy without him, for him. We change the direction, we change the consciousness, we change the motivation, even we don't feel like that. In many places throughout the scriptures, even we are full of material desires, still we should serve Krishna. And Krishna, he understands. He doesn't condemn us because we have material desires. We may condemn ourselves because we have material desires. We may think, oh, I'm so attached, I'm so lusty, I'm so materialistic and selfish, arrogant. So I'm so disqualified. But as we mentioned last time, we may be unqualified, but we're never disqualified. Krishna never rejects us. So because we have the freedom to choose, then according to that, when our accumulated activities come towards the end, Krishna sees. When the body is ready to be finished, we won't lose it until the higher authorities, and Prabhupada said Krishna is keeping note. And Yamaraj certainly also is. We know the story of Ajamil. Ajamil, his record was terrible, but not only did he have a pious upbringing, but he also called on the name of Narayan, even though he wasn't meaning the Supreme Lord. He had named, very fortunately, his son Narayan. So he was so attached to the son, he called out the name of Narayan, even though he didn't mean Krishna. And the power of that name. So when the Yamadutas came, higher authorities said, well, this person has been a criminal, a woman hunter, done so many things to please and maintain the prostitute that he'd taken up with, robbing, stealing, killing. His record was horrendous. There's no way he could get anything but severe judgment and punishment in Yamaraj's court. So the Yamadutas came to drag him out, and they started to drag him out of his body. But the Vishnu Dutas, because he called out the name of Narayan, they came and said, stop! And they were so powerful and effulgent and impressive, such mana, that the Yamadutas stopped. And then the Vishnu Dutas started to question them, and they couldn't answer. And then the Vishnu Dutas preached to them. This person has chanted the name of Narayan. Even once, he was in great desperation. He was, in one sense, offenseless in his chanting, desperate. He had nothing else. So he called out, Narayan! He wasn't calling Krishna, but the name and Krishna are the same. So he got the result. And because he heard the Vishnu Dutas preaching, he got relief, but then he adjusted his life, because he didn't die. He didn't leave his body at that time. Yamadutas couldn't take him. So he adjusted his life and came back to his pious activity and went back to Godhead. So the choice is there, even though the karma, the higher authorities, they're deciding one thing, we can change that. And there's another story from the Mahabharata, history from Mahabharata. Have you heard of the Princess Queen Savitri and Satyavan? Savitri was a very influential, effulgent, beautiful, highly qualified, intelligent, cultured princess. And she at the time of her betrothal or choosing, being ready for marriage, she was disappointed in so many ways by the men who came. So finally, she decided that she would find her own husband. She went searching for a highly qualified person who she could accept and commit to for the rest of her life. She traveled and met many men, and many men were trying for her hand. And eventually, she was in one forest, and she saw one young man chopping wood. And she didn't know who it was, but he saw her, and they spoke. His name was Satyavan, and he was Savitri could tell that he was in great distress, and he explained to her that his father and mother had been powerful queen and king, had an opulent and thriving, cultured kingdom, but then they'd been attacked in a coup to take over the power, and Satyavan's father was blinded. So Savitri was very impressed by this man, and Satyavan was working, chopping wood and doing whatever he could just to maintain his mother and father in their destitute condition. So Savitri was very impressed by this man's integrity. He was very handsome, he was bold, and he was also humble and committed to his parents. So she appreciated him very much and decided, well, they spent time together and got to know each other a little more. And Savitri decided, this is the man I want to dedicate my life to fully, till death do us part. So she took her Satyavan back with her to meet her father, who was a king in his own kingdom. And when they got there, the father was with a very noble transcendentalist, Sri Narada Muni. So the king was Savitri's father was very happy to see them, received them back very warmly, and was happy to hear about their commitment to become married with his permission, and he gave it. Unfortunately, Narada Muni, who's a seer, he told them, before you make a final commitment, I have to tell you something, as I see what's going to happen in the future. And he said, I'm very happy for you, but there's one serious obstacle. Your husband to be, your fiancé, Satyavan, is destined to die in 1 year. In 1 year. And Savitri was so determined, she didn't consider that at the moment. She said, in any case, I am committing my life fully, and our lives are now eternal. With my commitment, we're now eternally, our futures are eternally entwined. So Narada Muni gave them certain rituals, performances, and austerities that they could perform, that they could execute to give her the best chance, give them the best chance of changing that destination, that Satyavan would pass away in 1 year. So they were married, and they found a proper place for performing their austerities, living a simple life in the country, maintaining themselves simply. And then after the full year, on the 1 year anniversary, the weather turned very, very bad and cold, and lightning and thunder, and it's described that Savitri was barely able to drag her husband, who was fading physically, looked very weak and pale. She was able to drag him into their cottage, and just as they got inside, Satyavan lay down, became pale and white, stopped breathing, and was cold. The prophecy was coming true. And at that point, through all the terrible weather, Savitri could see a very massive person in the distance coming towards them. And as they came close, she could see it was Lord Yamaraj on his black buffalo. So Yamaraj came and said, now is time. I'm taking your husband to the kingdom of death. Now is the time. And Savitri didn't accept that. She didn't give up. So she followed Yamaraj, who was taking the husband away. And they went through fields and over land and rugged territory and desert. And Savitri just continued and continued. And she kept demanding and asking and pleading for her husband. And Yamaraj just told her to go back. And they went on for days and days. And then finally, Yamaraj stopped and he said, you're so perseverant. I'll grant you one boon, one wish. And immediately Savitri said, please return my father-in-law's sight. Satyavan's father had been blinded in the attack, and Yamaraj said yes. And when Yamaraj offered that benediction, he said, you can't ask for your husband's life. That was the condition. So she asked for that her father-in-law's vision be restored, and Yamaraj said yes, and it was. And then Yamaraj thought, well, that would be enough. She would leave, but she continued following him. And they went on for days over terrible terrain. Her feet were bleeding and she was weak, but she continued pleading, begging Yamaraj to please return her husband. They were eternally entwined in their destinies. Please, please. And Yamaraj, after some time, he stopped and he said, you're so perseverant, I'll give you a second boon, and you can't ask for your husband's life. So she immediately said, please restore Satyavan's kingdom, her father and his father and mother's kingdom, his kingdom now. And Yamaraj said, all right. And he did, and that kingdom was restored. And still, so Yamaraj continued and started descending into the lower planetary system. And Savitri continued following him, continued. And Yamaraj just couldn't countenance how she could be so determined. Something very powerful and effective, and she was pleading and begging, please, please, please. So Yamaraj says, finally, I'll give you one more boon because you're so determined, and I appreciate that. You cannot ask for your husband's life. So what did she ask for? She said, I asked for the benediction that I will be the mother of many children. And Yamaraj said, yes, that's the last one. So Savitri said, all right, you've taken my husband, and our destinies are eternally entwined. How can I possibly have children if you take my husband? And Yamaraj was flummoxed. He realized he'd been defeated. That this lady was so persistent and so intelligent and so sharp and so committed to saving her husband that she tricked Yamaraj. So he said, all right, you take him back. Yamaraj didn't take him to the court of death. He came back to life, and they left and went back to their simple home in the forest. And then, of course, Satyavan had his kingdom. So Savitri was so determined and so effective and surrendered in her duty and her commitment, So that's a very nice example for us. If we study this Bhagavad Gita and learn, according to Prabhupada's instructions, how to become immortal, if we develop our perseverance, and I should say cultivate our perseverance, because perseverance, confidence, determination, power, confidence, these are all qualities of the soul. These are what I call diamond qualities. The diamond is always effulgent and beautiful and solid. It may fall in the mud. It may be covered with mud. It may be caked with hard earth. It may be covered by dust. It may be hidden in so many ways, but it doesn't change its quality. So we may be covered in so many ways by our different levels, two material, subtle, and gross bodies, and all other kinds of conditioning. We may be covered. So let's see if anyone has any thoughts or questions or about that so far. Let's see. Please share any thoughts or comments or realizations, or how to become more determined. So many valuable considerations that we can discuss, understand, and gradually learn to apply. Develop our diamond qualities. So that example, that history of Savitri and Satyavan is so pertinent in terms of the determination. And Krishna talks about these things in Bhagavad Gita in many different ways. As explained before, there are different kinds of transcendentalists. The Brahmavadi, the Paramatmavadi, and the devotee. So there's the Brahman realized, there's the Satya, there's the Super Soul realized, and there's the Bhagavan realized. And as mentioned in the Brahmajyoti spiritual sky, there are innumerable spiritual planets. The number of these planets is far, far greater than all of the planets in this world, this material world. This material world has been approximated as only 1/4 of the creation. In this material segment, there are millions and billions of universes with trillions of planets and suns, stars and moons. But this whole material creation is only a fragment of the total creation. Most of the creation is in the spiritual sky. One who desires to merge into the existence of the Supreme Brahman is at once transferred to the Brahmajyoti of the Supreme Lord, the bodily effulgence. One can enter into that blinding effulgence, and thus attain the spiritual sky. The devotee who wants to enjoy the association of the Lord enters into the Vaikuntha planets, which are innumerable. And the Supreme Lord, by his plenary expansions as Narayan, with 4 hands, and with different names like Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Govinda, etc., associates with him there. So the Lord and the Bhakta are associating personally in one of the Vaikuntha planets. Therefore, at the end of life, the transcendentalists either think of the Brahmajyoti. There's 3 options here. We're getting into more detail of the science of the destination. We can either think of the Brahmajyoti, the Paramatma, Super Soul, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So these are all beyond thinking about the sweet ball, thinking about the dog, thinking about parents, thinking about money, thinking about the future of our children. Those are all valid, but we have to make our attachment to Krishna more strong, because those things are going to change. They're not eternal. I have a daughter in this lifetime. Was she my daughter in my last lifetime? Or 1,000,000 years ago? Will she be my daughter in 1,000,000 years from now? No, just this life. So there's love and affection between us. That's valuable and valid and important. And there's something that's beyond that as well. The eternal love. If I really love her transcendentally, I'll help her to advance in Krishna consciousness. And she'll help me. And we're pretty good at that. Could be a lot better, but we're pretty good. So we have a choice. We can think of spiritually, we can think of the Brahmajyoti, which is pretty difficult. The Paramatma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In all cases, they enter into the spiritual sky, but only the devotee or he who is in personal touch with the Supreme Lord enters into the Vaikuntha planets. The personal connection, whether it's the Vaikuntha Lokas or it's Krishna Loka, there's a personal connection. This must be believed firmly. Because the Lord says that he adds in his promise, of this there is no doubt. We should believe this firmly. We should not reject that which does not tally with our imagination. Oh, I can't imagine becoming immortal. So what? There are things that don't tally with our imagination or our very intelligent analysis, logic, even often our personal experience, although those aspects of understanding can be valid. We should not reject that which does not tally with our imagination. Our attitude should be that of Arjuna, and this is very important. The attitude. Arjuna said, I believe everything you have said, quote unquote. I believe everything that you have said. So it's important that we come to the point of not just intellectually or on the level of belief say, I accept everything that's there in Bhagavad Gita. But firmly, deeply be attracted to living according to that conviction. I'm excited to, if I believe everything Krishna said, then I will follow the instructions. That's the symptom. That's the proof. And Krishna is waiting for us. And as much as we do that, he's happy and he rewards us accordingly. Yayatam mam prapadyante. And as what we don't do, he lets us stay in that whatever aspect of illusion that is. Whatever our bad habits or our avoidance are anarthas. And it's very important to understand what they are. We avoid offenses by understanding how we are offensive. What is the last 10th offense? To not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names, and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions about this. So we have a choice. Am I going to? I'm so incapable or unqualified. I can't give up this bad habit. That's not a fact. We get the choice to maintain material attachments or not. Now that's a high level of responsibility and maturity. So if we're not there yet, then let's understand how I come to that level of responsibility. And really, really understand and look at what's going on without condemning, without damning ourselves. All right, this is going on, this is what's real. How can I remedy that? What are the positive steps? Instead of wallowing in, oh, I've got this, I'm so weak and it's so difficult. We tend to do that. We tend to avoid what is scary, what seems difficult. And often we make it difficult. Therefore, when the Lord says that at the time of death, whoever thinks of him as Brahman or Paramatma, or as the personality of God, it certainly enters into the spiritual sky. There is no doubt about it. So Prabhupada is extending. Krishna doesn't say at the time of one who thinks of anyone who quits his body at the end of life, remembering me. But Prabhupada is expanding on what Krishna says, remembering me, because Brahmajyoti is also Krishna. Not fully, but Brahmajyoti is Krishna's effulgence. So Prabhupada is expanding. And with that expansion, we can understand by that mercy, by the sound vibration, by the words, the instructions, the guidance of the pure devotee, we can get more deep understanding ourselves and engage ourselves and make distinctions. Do I want to merge into the Brahmajyoti? Is that actually what I really want? Maybe I'm attracted to that. Okay, that's fine. Do I want to relate with Krishna in one of his forms in Vaikuntha? Which one am I attracted to? Or do I want to go and play with Krishna and Balaram in the forest, herding the cows and calves? Gradually, as we advance, we will notice our attraction. That will become manifest with patience. There is no question of disbelieving this, Prabhupada says. So remembering Krishna, how do we remember Krishna? What does thinking of Krishna mean? What does it mean? One who thinks of me at the time of death. How do we prepare? What does it mean thinking of Krishna? Now, in his preface to the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada says this: there is no difference between the teachings of Lord Chaitanya presented here in Teachings of Lord Chaitanya and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the teachings of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. The teachings of Lord Chaitanya are practical demonstrations of Lord Krishna's teachings. Lord Krishna's ultimate instruction in Bhagavad Gita is that everyone should surrender unto him, Lord Krishna. Krishna promises to take immediate charge. And Prabhupada also says that Lord Chaitanya's instruction to always chant the holy names of the Lord is the same as Lord Krishna's instruction of Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakta, always think of me, worship me, become my devotee. Prabhupada says that those two instructions are the same. So sometimes, and I know in the past, I have thought, well, if I find a nice picture, excuse me, nice pictures of Krishna or deities, then I can focus on that while I chant my japa. Now, if that's helpful for you, good. But if we're simply thinking about the beautiful form, which is transcendental and perfect, and yet what is the advice for chanting? What is the offenseless application of chanting in our chanting our japa, especially our japa, or anytime we're chanting? Is to what? Shravanam, kirtanam. Chanting and hearing. Hearing and chanting. Shravanam. The main thing is to hear. Simply do nothing else except hear. So having pictures, that's good. But if that becomes the prominent, if we're thinking about that, using our mind to do anything except hearing, then maybe we're missing something, or it's not exactly what we're meant, how we can best chant. To be inattentive in any way, although we may use things to come to that stage, to be inattentive in any way is one of the offenses. To think about anything or focus on anything except the sound. One time, devotee, you may have heard this, devotee asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, when I'm chanting, my mind is always taking me away. How do I control my mind? Prabhupada said, where's the question of mind? You chant and you hear. Where's the question of mind? I'm still struck by that statement, that response. Where's the question of mind? So what? The mind's doing so many things. I'm simply interested in hearing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So if that instruction of Lord Chaitanya always chant Hare Krishna is the same as the instruction of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, always think of me, then that's reality. We don't need anything else. Now, if there are things that help us to get to that stage, all right. We just don't all of a sudden, well, maybe depends on our level and our practice, because it is a gradual practice. Whether we give up anything else. And Prabhupada also said things like, best thing is to chant at least 1 hour in front of the deities. Whether you have your pictures on your altar at home or some deities or not, pictures are also deities. Or you're in the temple, which is, at least in Auckland, impossible now. You have to come to Whangarei. And by the way, Monday, the 11th of this month, is the appearance of Lord Sri Ram. Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Ki Jai. Ram Nomi. So up here we're having a public festival in our most recent new premises in 43 Bank Street for that celebration on the Sunday. We're celebrating it on Sunday instead of Monday, which is a work day, starting at 3 p.m. Sunday the 10th here in Whangarei, 43 Bank Street. If you're in town, please come along. If you're not, come anyway. And if anyone gets in touch with me about wanting to attend that remotely, then we may be able to set up a Zoom connection for you. And mentioning transcendental appearances, today, the 6th of April, 2022, is the appearance day of Sri Ramanujacharya, one of the greatest acharyas of all time, representing even though he's not in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, he's in one of the other three. He's in the Sri Sampradaya, coming down from Lakshmi Devi, goddess of fortune. And he was probably the most dynamic proponent or preacher in terms of defeating the Mayavad philosophy. Very powerful. He appeared 1,005 years ago in 1017 AD, 1017 AD, 1,005 years ago. And he disappeared in 1137. So he lived exactly 120 years. And he was such a, he originally had accepted an impersonalist guru without really understanding or distinguishing. But then gradually as he listened to his spiritual master's lectures, talks, teachings, he was disturbed by the impersonal slant. And gradually he began to argue with his spiritual master. It was Yadav Prakash. And he would gradually became qualified to refute him. So his spiritual master was very angry that this upstart, this disciple, is challenging me, trying to defeat my arguments. So he sent him away. He said, you start your own school. And Ramanujacharya did that. And he was so potent and powerful in his expansive preaching, influencing so many people. His guru and his disciples, they decided to kill him. Now Krishna saved him from that, but that was first they'll laugh at us, then they'll try to stop us, and then so they couldn't kill him, and eventually because he developed his preaching and his purity, his behavior and his speech so purely that eventually his spiritual master and his God peers, siblings, that is, they all surrendered to him, and he accepted them as his disciples. Such a great, powerful personality, Sri Ramanujacharya Ki Jai. So back to the chanting. If we, if the instruction of Lord Chaitanya, as Prabhupada describes, to chant the holy names constantly, is the same as Krishna's instruction to always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, surrender to me, is the same, then thinking of, and there's a very nice quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in this regard. I'm not sure, there's a whole list of quotes from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. I think I saved that, but I'm not sure. Yes. There's a whole list of 100 instructions from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta I found online. And number 47 says, quote, when anarthas will be removed due to chanting the holy name, then Krishna's form, qualities, and pastimes will automatically manifest from the name. I'll repeat that. When anarthas will be removed due to chanting the holy name, then Krishna's form, his qualities, and his pastimes, his beauty, his form, his qualities, and his pastimes will automatically manifest from the name. There is no need to make an endeavor to artificially remember his form, qualities, and pastimes. This is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati speaking. There is no need to make an endeavor to artificially remember his form, qualities. Sometimes we may think, well, I'll think about Krishna's pastimes, and that will help me chant my rounds. He's saying, no, there's no need to make that endeavor, because that's artificial. Because as we advance, as we become purified, the anarthas are purified and removed, then automatically those things that we're attracted to, or we're even artificially setting up to meditate on while we're chanting the holy names instead of hearing the holy names as well as we could, they will automatically manifest from the name. So a little advice which I thought was very pertinent in terms of what we do when we chant, what we think about or what we don't think about. It's difficult. The mind, the great trickster mind, gives us unlimited. The trickster mind has about 2,300,028 reasons not to chant, but just listening, just hearing, and coming back, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, yato nischalati. From wherever and whatever the mind may wander to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. So that, following that instruction and practicing that with resolute determination, like Savitri, I'm going to get Krishna, no matter what. No, nothing and no one's going to stop me. That is fulfilling Krishna's instruction. Always think of me. And fulfilling this achieving the result of Krishna's promise. Anyone who quits his body at the end of life, remembering me, attains immediately to my nature, and there is no doubt of this. So we apply Lord Chaitanya's instruction to always chant, and of course without offenses, gradually giving up offenses. Then we get the result. It's guaranteed. There is no doubt of this. So that may bring up questions or challenges. How are you going with your chanting? How would you like to improve it? How could you improve? How might you be able to improve it? And what do you think about this point of not doing anything else except hearing? Again and again. What do you think? How is this most essential and foundational? For those who are committed, probably is the most important thing is chanting 16 rounds. Minimum, avoiding offenses. Same time, we need to take care of our health in order to do that. And our association. So many factors. And every one of us has the opportunity to arrange our lives, mold our lives in such a way that we can always be doing that. So it's very auspicious to find some bona fide quotes about the life of Sri Ramanujacharya, such a great Vaishnavacharya, how Lord Chaitanya and Prabhupada established there's some tiny apparent differences between Lord Chaitanya's philosophy, the Vaishnava philosophy, and Ramanuja's. But Prabhupada, in a discussion with Professor Hopkins, Professor Hopkins, who was a student of Vaishnava culture, Hindu so-called philosophy, and so-called Hindu philosophy, and Shastra, very spiritually minded, intelligent, scholarly person in approaching Krishna. He asked Prabhupada about any differences. Prabhupada said no. They both teach that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we are his servants. So it's good to look into these matters and pray to Lord Ramanujacharya, and especially on Monday, to observe the festival at home or with others. If several people want to join us on Sunday for our festival here remotely, and let me know. I'll put my email address in. And finally, anything that has this been useful? Because Prabhupada has given us a philosophy that's meant to be used to make us better sadhakas, better practitioners of bhakti yoga, whatever level we're on. So if you want to be in touch for any reason, especially about joining us online, maybe we can use Restream. I'd rather use Zoom because it's interactive. All right. Thank you for your presence and your attention. And even if you're listening to this at another time when we're not live, please offer your comments or questions or doubts or realizations. I'm happy to receive them. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Ramanujacharya ki jai. Appearance day of Sri Ramchandra, Monday the 11th, ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.